we have to solve this one problem that all of us have, is that we finance every single thing that we buy. What we do with our money is we put it in somebody else's bank. They use other people's money and other people's time to create wealth. So with infinite banking, it's controlling the flow of money in the banking function in your life.
Hey, what's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Indie Investor Podcast. Got Jim Oliver on the podcast with me today. What's going on, Jim?
Man, just living life. Grateful for every day here in sunny Florida. How about you?
Yes, living life, not living sunny in Indiana most of the time, but you know,
Great
I am
people,
living life and blessed.
I always tell people the thing I miss about living in the Midwest, Brad, is that you can't get any better people than are in the Midwest. And being a kid from California, you know, look, you can have it. And that there's great people in California, there's great people in Florida, but it's just different in the Midwest. So I do miss that.
Yeah, definitely. Really down to earth, grounded, humble people. So that's awesome. Well, thanks again, man, for being on the podcast, guys. Jim Oliver, I had him on a podcast with me on my other podcast, the Iron Deep podcast, a while back. But he's a nationally recognized expert in infinite banking concept, founder of Create Tailwind. He helps individuals, really just break free. I think to true financial freedom. He's got stories that we're going to share a little bit about that. But he, didn't come from wealth, came from kind of a tough background in the foster system. And let's just talk about that, Jim. You grew up in the foster system, inner city Los Angeles. And I want to maybe just talk a little bit about that, how that shaped you, even to today, when you look back about money, ownership, financial freedom. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, like when you grow up poor, you're in love with money because you don't have it, right? And you think wealth is money because it's really, you don't use that word, and especially in the inner city, you use the word rich. I want to get rich, and you see people in Los Angeles is kind of this weird thing, Brett. You could go a couple miles this way, and people are living a totally different life than you are, and you can go a couple miles that way, go towards the beach. And like, it's just amazing. And you think, why am I in this situation? I didn't have faith then. I didn't know God. Was until I was 24. And so I just was angry about it, but I was obsessed with how do I figure this money game out? And growing up in foster care, you learn scarcity. You learn the scarcity mentality. There's nothing abundant in your life. So abundance, I didn't even know what that meant. And I, we were homeless at one point in time after I did get adopted, but it made me like determined. It molded me to like feel like I got nothing to lose. When I became a Christian and I realized that I serve the King of the universe, I have nothing to lose now either. So like I kept that same mentality, but it molded me to not like, the one thing I really hate, Brett, is when somebody says, hey, hurt people. Like if you grow up in foster care abuse, that you're going to hurt people. No, I don't want anyone else to hurt like that. The reason I'm so passionate about helping people become financially independent and financially free is money gives you choices. Choices gives you freedom. I want them to be free. I don't want somebody to hurt.
No, exactly. Oh man, that's so good. And definitely heard that. Yeah. Hurt people, broken people, so that's awesome. And I know that, yeah, you come from that world, didn't have a lot of money. And then you obviously worked your way up in the financial services industry, worked your way up in other jobs. And I think there was like an aha moment in your life that you're like, I don't know, like you wanted to be maybe financial free. Maybe things were clicking, but you were making money possibly, but you weren't free. And I think that you have some other stories along that as well, people you work with. So can you share about people that are working hard, maybe rich, but not free?
Yeah. So let me give you two stories, and I'll try not to stretch this out too long. Is when I was 13 years old, I got a job where my adopted mother was working in a casket factory, McIntyre Manufacturing. And I was swinging a hammer for 13 hours a day, or not 13 hours a day, it was 8 hours a day. And it was to build the hardware that goes on the outside of a casket, like the handles and stuff. And it was really hard work, and it was hot in the summer. And I saw Dwayne McIntyre, the guy that owned it. He'd come in. He was the owner of the business, right? And he'd be in there for a few hours behind his desk in his office. I don't know what he was doing, but and then he'd leave. And we were working there all day, doing the physical labor, everything else. I knew he lived in Palos Verdes. We lived in a crummy area, right? And so then one day I'm in my neighborhood and I'm going up to the store to get a Coke, and I walk by this guy's pulling weeds in like one of the worst houses in our neighborhood, right? And I looked down and it's Dwayne McIntyre. And again, forget that it's one of the worst houses. All of them were crummy. But I said, "What are you doing here?" And I'd like to say I was really respectful and everything else. I just wasn't then at that time, Brett. And I just said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, hi, Jim. I own this house." And I was like, "Why do you own real estate here? Why don't you own it up in Palos Verdes?" He said, "I own real estate all over Los Angeles." So at 13 years old, I realized I should have learned, which I didn't. And I have grace for myself because I was 13 and I didn't have a mentor and I didn't have a coach, but I learned everything I needed to know about being financially independent. The owner of the business uses other people's time, right, to make their dreams come true, and real estate. So I didn't listen. I listened to the noise and I went into Wall Street and I built $700 million under management, and I was charging a 1% fee. So for all intents and purposes, I had made it. This is it for especially this poor kid. I was living in a house I never thought I'd live in. I was driving cars I never thought I would drive. I had a lifestyle that I never thought I'd have, but something didn't feel right. And so one day I get this report and it says that our clients made X rate of return for this period. And I thought, wait a minute, I have money in that. I don't think we made that much money. So I started doing the math. That was the average rate of return. The actual rate of return was less than half of that. And so I said, wait a minute. If it's less than half, this math doesn't work on this traditional financial planning thing. So I studied my whole book of business and I said, how did the people that really have money, of the $700 million, people that really made it from nothing or made it, they were self-made, even if it wasn't from nothing, it came down to two things. And it's not going to surprise you. It was real estate and it was businesses. And if you're a real estate investor, you are in the real estate business, right? And so I said, wait a minute, I'm telling people the wrong things. So I went back and there was a book that I read called, it was like 38 Letters to My Son by J.D. Rockefeller. And in one of the letters, he says this, Brett, he says, the biggest hindrance to me becoming the richest man in the world. By the way, he visualized himself being the richest man in the world when he was poor in Cleveland, Ohio. So he wasn't born in the wealth. Okay, he created it, right? He was a man of faith too, by the way. And he says in here, the biggest hindrance to me becoming the wealthiest man in the world was the banks. But now I am the bank. And that little spark created, again, just how God works, is then I met Nelson Nash, who created this thing called the infinite banking concept. And I went, like just like today when I'm talking about my devotional, and then I talk to you and you talk about, iron deep and going deeper in the devotional. And I'm like, there's this is how God works. Right. So
yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm gonna have to get that book. I wrote down that book. Maybe you guys too should write that down. 38 Letters to My Son, Rockefeller. I know that a lot of people have quoted him, followed him, read books about him, and he built his wealth. And obviously, this is a lot about where the infinite banking concept comes in. And this is where Create Tailwind, I know you talk about the infinite banking concept, and we talked about it, on previous shows as well a little bit, but can you kind of give us, just someone that's unfamiliar with it, break down the basics? How is it different than traditional financial advice that you would get from your financial advisor? How is it a little bit different? Can you break down the basics?
Yeah. So the basics are that we have to solve this one problem that all of us have, is that we finance every single thing that we buy. We either give up interest we could have earned somewhere else, or we pay somebody interest, right? And what we do with our money is we put it in somebody else's bank, right? They take our money and they loan it to us, which just seems funny, but they loan it to us and other people, and they charge us a lot more interest and them a lot more interest than they're going to pay us for having that money on deposit. They use other people's money and other people's time to create wealth, right? And so with infinite banking, you have this insurance policy, which is what all these marketers out on YouTube and everything else focus on. How to design the insurance contract. The insurance contract is like the chassis, okay? So it's like the chassis of the car. You have this insurance contract, and the reason we use this insurance contract in a whole life policy, because whole life has guarantees, can't go down in value, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of reasons that that we use that. It's not sexy. It's consistent. But because you have that money sitting in there, the insurance company has to give you a loan of their money to anytime you want it, up to 100% of your cash value. So the more money you have in there, the more money you can get of theirs. So your money stays in there and grows in a tax-free environment, constantly compounding every single day, guaranteed, and you get to go use their money. So now you have other people's money and you have control of it. Sounds like the bank. And so you're going to take that, and now you're going to create the engine. The engine, let's use real estate, okay? Because I have lots of examples of people doing this and becoming financially independent in a very short period of time. You go buy some real estate. That real estate cash flows. One of the keys is you're already doing something to pay for your groceries and your lifestyle. Don't use that cash flow. Reinvest that cash flow to buy the next deal, the next deal, the next deal, the next deal, until that cash flow generates more money than you need coming in on an annual basis for your ideal lifestyle. Now, you normally, Brett, you would have to choose. I have the money that's sitting in this account, or I have this asset, right? But I get the money sitting in that account and I get the asset because the insurance company has to give me an interest-only loan. So anybody in real estate that's been in the real estate for a while, back before 2008, 2009, knows that we used to get, that was the loan you want, is right, is you want interest only. And so you go out and buy real estate, and then you get the rate of return if there's any growth in the real estate, which hopefully there is. You get the rate of cash flow. You get this tax invisible rate of return inside the insurance contract. And even though it's designed for cash value, there is death benefit. So you get this legacy rate of return, and you create generational wealth because that's tax free. So you get it all. It's an and asset. You get all of those things I just said by doing the infinite banking concept, and it's controlling the flow of money in the banking function in your life.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. And I have actually, guys, I mean, I have three infinite banking policies, whole life policies that I use for infinite banking. And I want to talk about just your situation, because I think when we had it on the last podcast, you had multiple. I mean, you had, I don't even know how many, I think 20 plus of these policies. And so can you talk to us about that, about, how you're using it personally, and why do you have so many policies? Why not just have one or two?
Yeah. So what happens is, I started off with one or two, and then what would happen is all of my assets, the money starts to flow back to you too fast. The policy, you can't just put as much money as you want to in each of these policies. There's something called the modified endowment line, and it's the MEC line, modified endowment contract. So you only can put so much money in there. If you go out and invest in real estate, and let's say when I invest in real estate, I want to get at least a 25% cash on cash return. So, because I'm going to leverage, and the people in the audience that are new to real estate, they're going to think that sounds high. And the people that are really experienced, they're going to think that, well, I wouldn't do it for 25%. I want 40 or whatever their number is. But I've just used 25% because that's what works for me. In about 4 years, the policy won't handle the cash flow. So then I have to expand, right? I got to go buy more policies. So I've just done it. And then I had to buy more policies. I've used this concept to buy over 30 or parts of or all of 30 businesses. Those businesses cash flow. And so the money just kept on coming in. And I thought, well, I can't put it in there so that it would sit in the bank. Well, I don't want my money sitting in somebody else's bank, letting them to go make money on it. So I would expand. Also, let's say you and I are in business. You're a younger guy than me. your numbers for all this cash value and stuff looks better. So like, I'm going to buy a policy on you. Then I'm going to buy a policy on this business partner. And with these 30 businesses, I would say, well, we're going to have a buy sell agreement, right? Well, hey, would you guys mind if I pay for outside of the term cost, if I buy a permanent policy on you guys and I use the cash value for my own personal banking system? And they go, what are you talking about? And so then they wanted to buy policies. And so we just got policies and policies and policies. And that's kind of how that happens. The more that you understand infinite banking, the more money you want flowing through your banking system, not somebody else's.
Hey guys, this is Brett Snodgrass with Simple Quarters. I want to let you know that you can earn passive income with a company that you can trust. If you're looking for a safe and reliable way to earn a fair return on your hard-earned money, at Simple Quarters, we make it easy for you to invest passively. No work, no hassle, just steady returns. You don't have to buy a house. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to hire a team or hire contractors. You really just want to earn a return on your investment. Then I would love to chat with you. We have a proven track record with great references. Your money should be working for you. And with Simple Quarters, you can invest confidently with a team that delivers results. You can email me at brett@simplequarters.com. You can check out our website, simplequarters.com. You can even text me on my local cell phone number at 812-216-8602. 812-216-8602. Again, I'm talking about earning an extremely passive income with a trusted company. Email me or text me today. Let's chat soon. Can you kind of give us some results? You mentioned, before the podcast, the guy had a business and wasn't free. Can you talk to us about a couple stories with that?
Yeah. So this is a friend of mine and client, John and Mindy, and they were, your awesome family living in Sioux City, Iowa. John had a great business, that was super productive. He was a painting contractor, and his wife was a dentist, and she had her own practice, owned the building, everything else. But they had 3 kids at home, 3 small kids, and she didn't want to be a dentist anymore. And he didn't want the business to be owning him and him to be self-employed, right? The business ran him. He worked his butt off and 10, 12 hours a day. And they thought about the business and they thought about her practice 24/7. But he had all these traditional financial planners with different insurance companies and different brokerage firms. And I would tell him, hey, it's not about building this nest egg and then living off it the rest of your life. And then you just gotta, and they were both in their mid to late 30s. And, so they had a long window of doing this for the next 20, 30 years and hoping the stress doesn't kill them. Right. And everybody else was telling, hey, Jim's full of it. Jim's full of it. Jim's full of it. But he finally, his CPA said, I think there's something to this. Let's dive in. So he dove in. And then he'd come to me and he'd say, well, I can't buy real estate with no cash. I don't have that much cash, blah, 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 blah. So here's his first deal, because I remember it in the back of my head, is this woman in Sioux City, Iowa, had a $2 million real estate portfolio. He offered her 100% seller finance, $1.4 million. She took it. 100%, 20-year AM, right? Now he has the cash value in his life insurance policies to go do the reno. He's just a burr guy. Okay. He's just nothing fancy. And so he did that, created equity, took the money and bought more in 3 years. Now, I had this conversation with him when he said, hey, I'm financially independent. In 3 years, he became financially independent. His wife's no longer a dentist. They still own the dental practice, but she doesn't practice at least full time. She may go in there when they need her or whatever, but he doesn't run the business anymore. Somebody else runs the business. They run the real estate business, and they are financially independent, financially free. They go on tons of vacations. But he said to me, Jim, I don't want to give you too much credit, but you changed my life. And I said, no, I didn't. I didn't change your life. You changed your life. You changed your mindset of the goal. And all I did was tell you that what you thought was the goal is a lie. It's not to build a nest egg of some big chunk of money and then live off it for the rest of your life. We were told a lie.
No, that's true. No, I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that story. such an amazing story. And I think that's what I was in my guys call. I mentioned our Iron Deep guys, and I think one of the things that we've all gotten the business for this financial freedom. And like we dream about the one day where we feel free and whatever that looks like for us, where we maybe could travel and do kind of what we want to do and not have to ask, oh, do I have the money or do I have the space or the margin? But then one of the guys says, yeah, we've all dreamt of that. But then we realize 10 years later or 15 or whatever it is that we're slaves to the
Yeah.
business, no matter what level you're at too. And there was definitely some truth into that. And I was just thinking about that more and more as you're kind of talking. And can you talk about some of the myths and the misunderstandings of kind of what you're talking about? You talk about maybe debt or interest or yeah, just
Yeah.
even mine. I have a really good real estate business, but sometimes I'm like, man, like this is a lot. Like I don't feel free at the end of the day.
So yeah, no, and I totally get it. And so I'm going to share like two messages. One, I want to let's think about like money in a way in this way. Okay. If I would loan you $100 million today and your only obligation was in 1 year, you got to pay me $5 million of interest, would you take the loan?
If you're going to give you 100 million today and in 5 years,
No, in 1 year, 1 year
in
from
1 year,
today, you got to pay me $5 million of interest,
so it's 5%.
5%.
Yeah.
You take the loan.
Um, I mean, 5% is a pretty good rate.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So let's say you reversed it. And Brett, if you're open to this and you want to give me that loan, we can talk about it after the show. But but like let's say you gave me $100 million and I got to pay you $5 million in 1 year. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take your money and I'm going to go find a seller that has a $500 million portfolio, and I'm going to get them to accept that 100 million or hope maybe less to buy that portfolio, and they're going to sell or finance it. If I have to go to the bank, I'll go to the bank in this situation, because if I can get 25% cash on cash on the 100 million, I'm going to make 25 million, right? I don't care if it's 10. I got to pay you 5, and I'm going to call you up. I'm going to say, hey, Brett, I'd love to come up to Indy and take you to St. Elmo's and get a great steak and get some of that hot cocktail sauce.
There you go.
And we have a great dinner. I hand you your check and you say, hey, Jim, you want to pay any principal? And I say, nope, see you next year. Okay, so think about that concept of interest only, and it's due in a year, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is that when you think of freedom, people ask me, well, Jim, how do you have 30 businesses? Like, do you have to have 30 meetings every week for each business and all that? No, I don't hardly have the businesses. Some of them are more labor intensive than others, right? But none of them are. If they are, Brett, I get rid of it. Okay, I don't own all 30 now because I've sold some, I've done whatever, but I've used this concept and this mindset to buy 30 businesses. But I'll give you an example of one of my businesses. Well, let me give you the formula, and I'll give you an example. Here's the formula: hire really good people, because people are looking for opportunities, right? Overpay them. I'm not talking about stupid overpay them, but overpay them and give everybody equity opportunity. And I'll give you an example of my trash company. Is we came to the person that's running it and we said to her, hey, here's where the business is. We need it to be here. And it is, as you incrementally get it to there, you're going to earn equity. So literally, the size of the business is today, you're going to earn up to 20% equity, which means we're going to hand you this business today the way it is right now, right? You're going to own the business. We're going to give it to you. That's that 20%. She got like tears in her eyes. Nobody had ever given her an opportunity to be an owner and to make that shift from employee to owner. Now she's going to act like an owner from day one, right? And she's getting overpaid, and and she's a really good person. That I know that sounds simple, Brett, but that formula works. And I've got other businesses, and I got a phone call last week on one of the businesses, and he says, and this guy, he always texts me at like 5 a.m. Call when you have a minute. And it scares me, right? So this is what he says to me. Hey, our bird feeder business that we're refurbishing the cameras that go in these bird feeders from Slovenia or Slovakia or whatever that country is it's going really crazy, Jim. Like we're going to probably make 35 grand this month from these bird feeders. I just want to let you know. That was the phone call.
Wow.
And so, like I get that you think, well, I don't want to have 30 businesses. I don't want to have that responsibility. I don't want to have that time. You don't have to. You get the formula that works for you. That's what works for me. And then if it doesn't, then sell the business.
Yeah, no, it's great. That's awesome. Well, great advice, Jim. Thank you so much. Before we just wrap up the podcast today, I want to just get a little bit of information just about Create Tailwind. But before we do that, let's just talk about someone just getting started. I mean, maybe this is their first time they've ever heard about this concept, and they're starting from scratch. Maybe they have a regular job, maybe some debt. They dream of maybe financial independence here in the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years. Where should they begin? What's a good starting point?
Yeah, where I think you got to begin is this, and this is anybody, especially, and this will help you get motivated and laser focused. Is you have to have a mission, right? You have to have a mission for your life, but you have to have a vision for your life. So the mission is like, who am I, and what do I want, and what do I want my life to be? And then the vision is like the goal, right? And so you create that vision. You want financial independence. And so then again, where am I today? What are the things that are important to me? And then what I would start doing is I would start studying, educating myself on how do people become financially independent. And just to tie into the first thing that you said is you can go to community.createtailwind.com, join for free. And there are courses on there for free that will get you started. And it's changing your mindset. It's changing the goal. That's the first step, because it's not you go to work and you build up this nest egg and then you live off of it for the rest of your life and you hope you die before the money runs out. That is not it. And it isn't. Just know, if you say, I'm going to become a real estate investor, there are people in your family, your friends, they're going to tell you you're wrong. Don't do that, right? I bought Apple stock when it was this. I bought Tesla when it was that. They're going to give you this noise. Just know that it takes courage to be on the outside of the herd, okay? And so I would start educating myself, because how do I get comfortable with doing something? I educate myself. When I wanted to when I wanted to have abs at 59 years old, Brett, I studied what do people eat that have abs that are 59 or 70 or whatever. What do they do in their workouts? What's their lifestyle look like? What is their inflammation protocol? What is their stress relief? How do they sleep? Everything. I studied it. I didn't know any of it. So that's what I would say is change your mindset, figure out what you want, and then start studying it. And you got lots of free stuff on Create Tailwind, on the community Create Tailwind. It's an app. You could take it everywhere. You could ask questions. We answer every question that's on there. You can talk to other people, not just me, that are in different stages of becoming financially independent, financially free, come from W-2s, how to break away from your W-2, everything else.
Awesome. We're going to put that in our show notes, guys. So make sure you guys check out Jim's website, Create Tailwind. And Jim, thank you so much for being on the Indie Investor Podcast today. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoy this podcast. This comes out every 2 weeks. So we see you guys next time. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Thanks, Brett.